Hello and welcome. Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Greenwich Live Sessions. This is your host Omar Khan, and I'm back with another session, another guest, and yet again, I'm very excited for today's session because the guest I'm about to introduce. Well, it's always a pleasure to be around intellectual people, to be around people who from which you can learn a lot. And our guest for today is someone very special. Without any further delay, let me introduce my guest for today. He is Mr. Professor Dr. Shujaat Mubarik. He is a professor at Muhammad Ali Jinnah University, Karachi. He is the Dean of Faculty of Business Administration and Social Sciences. He is also an anchor at multiple news channels. You've seen him on Capital TV, and soon you'll be seeing him on another channel as well. His expertise is in intellectual capital, supply chain economics, and sustainability. He's also a consultant on supply chain and service excellence to national and multinational companies. Welcome to the show, sir. Hope you're doing well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. In fact, it's pleasure to be on your show. I have seen a couple of other people on your show, and it's really exciting for me to be on your show.
Sir, pleasure is all ours. In fact, I'm extremely thankful to you because you had a busy schedule and you're not even at home, and still you were kind enough to join us for today. So let's just start off this session and let me ask you about this whole COVID situation. We were stuck in this situation for a good 4 or 5 months. So, how has life and work affected you?
Yeah, it was altogether a kind of a new situation. Most of us didn't see in whole of our life. So the first month of the COVID was a really very depressive. That it was kind of a forcible. You can say that putting into the box, putting at home. So obviously, the first month was a very depressive. Afterward, then at least me, I learned to stay at home and then to convert my time into a productive things. I started reading a lot of books which I was planning to read. I watched some movies. I worked on some research projects and something like so. It was a at the end of the day, it was a really productive break for me.
Indeed, that's the most beautiful part about human beings. They're very adaptable and they adapt according to any situation. Although it was, quite a pandemic because everyone was in a panic situation. No one knew what will happen. Even the economic state and everything was quite questionable. No one knew what will happen. And as you said, we found out the positivity and the bright side even during this pandemic. So let's just talk about your journey. Mashallah, you're so much into it now. You also did your PhD as well. So I'd like to ask you about your journey. From where did it all begin back when Dr. Shujaat was a student in university life? So what made you came towards this field of economics and supply chain?
Frankly speaking, when I was a student at the university or at the school level, I never thought about this PhD. And even I was a very average student. I was a very naughty and didn't focus much on my studies. So that's why in the maybe like in the O levels or in the matrix, I didn't work a lot. So was my marks were that very average. Then later on, once I went into my intermediate, I tried my best to recover from and to improve my marks. But yet, that once you have tendency toward playing and careless attitudes, obviously, it was a kind of thing that I didn't score very much, but yet it was much better than my O levels. So my scores were quite better, but yet that my I always give my example to the student that I was a very average student in term of the marks. I was not a very high scorer. For example, my CGPA remain always like 3 point something 3.19 or 3, it was around 3. I was not a very bad student, but I was also not a very brilliant student in a way that I'm always scoring 4 CGPA. But one thing which I always kept as a habit, and that yet I am fond of, that I had a very good friendship with the books. And
Right.
even this happens now, and it used to happen previously that whenever I'm going to any mall and I see any kind of a bookshop, so definitely my friends, my family, everybody knows that I would be getting into the bookshop and I would be buying some books for nothing. So that was something which really helped me a lot to excel everywhere, because I was reading books. Primarily I was fond of reading the fiction. I turned towards psychology, and in fact my turning towards this psychology in fact brought me into the field of this human capital, in which later on I did my PhD. But those books really helped me. So if those books weren't in my life, obviously, I maybe definitely I won't be here at the stage where I am.
Right. So a very valid point raised, because you're a professor as well. You taught many students as well. There's something that we've noticed over the years, that the students and the younger generation, they're getting away from the books. The habit of reading is not there, and I think that lacks in our basic IQ and general knowledge as well. When we talk about the younger generations, they're too much dependent upon technology and all these social apps. So, looking at your student days and now being as a professor, as a teacher, how would you differentiate the generation and students today as compared to your times?
Yeah, in fact, you know that now these gadgets, this social media and these mobile gadgets, they have replaced everything. They have replaced books, they have replaced parents, they have replaced friends. You know that everything has been replaced by this social media and these technological gadgets. So this is one of the reasons. Maybe this is nature of the beast. You know that how we have changed our life. But you know that the prime thing is that until unless we do not maintain a kind of a balance in our life, obviously, whether for example if I'm reading books and every time I'm reading books, that's also bad. I have to maintain the balance. So the same way, if I'm using these technology gadgets, the balance is important. So in my life, whatever little bit I achieved, it was that I tried to maintain the balance. That I didn't study a lot, but I studied. I gave time to the study. Maybe it wasn't not except for the PhD. I studied a lot for my PhD, but otherwise I gave time, but it wasn't much. But definitely I gave time. Then the other thing which I could see is that we should have we I cannot see a diversity of the hobbies in our students. You know, I was a very fond of music. I always wanted to be a singer. I in fact joined National Academy of Performing Arts for learning the music. I went over there for a couple of months. I put my best, but at the end of the day, I realized that कि मेरी आवाज जो है, it's too bad to be a singer, to be a vocalist. So later on, what happened that it's a very interesting story that I was at Napa, so they used to give us some of the you can say a kind of a practice sare gama pada. So I was just doing the first thing, which is sa. So I was practicing for Sa for an hour, and then my teacher came, and then he said to me that okay, shuru karo zara. So then I started Sa. So that was I started from very high,
I know.
notes. So what happened? He just caught my ear from here. He said that you can never be a good singer. You don't put a lot what is required. So better you go. And there was Ziam Hoyuddin used to take the classes of theater. So he said that it's better you go to the theater. So then for a couple of months I went to theater. I was over there. But since the theater was not my passion, I was there for a couple of months, and later on I left the theater. So you can say that I'm a Napa dropped out as well. So now whenever I see uh, somebody is singing, the the that dead singer, that
Idea.
again it becomes live inside me. But
Right.
the problem is, the irony is that I cannot sing well. But you know that what happened? Yet till now, you can see a lot of musical instruments at my home. This
Wow.
diversity of my hobbies gave me a very switch of my thoughts. And then whenever, for example, if I am doing something and then switching toward music and then towards something else, so then what happens that my mind get fresh. So nowadays what's happening that every time mobile laptop or something, sometime, the tab. So you know that if, from our 24 hours, 16 hours we are doing the same thing. So diversity is very important. I think that we have also to go into these kind of things. That if somebody likes singing, go to the singing. Something else. If we have our hobbies, so I think we should go into that. So that would definitely give diversity to our minds, and our mind can think out of the box.
I really like the point that you raised over here, that one should follow their passion, no matter what their passion is. Anything that makes them feel alive, anything that makes them feel happy, should be part of their day. As you mentioned, that you like reading books, you really like music, and at the same time, you've got such a hectic work as well, where you need lots of concentration. You need to stay updated with all the latest happenings around the world of economics and all the financial areas as well. So you've got a very diversified life yourself, where there's an artistic side of yours, and then you mentioned that you were really naughty in your college days as well. We're going to tap that side of you as well, but let's just talk about the intellectual side now. How did you made it to as an anchor person? Because as you mentioned before, you went to Napa for singing and acting, but what brought you towards the anchor side and towards business anchor?
In fact, the Napa was one of the reasons. You know that I was in Napa, so there was somebody who met me at over there. They wanted to have a program on Allama Iqbal, in PTV. So he met me. He said that you can. In fact, that program was in the Punjabi. So I was supposed to host the Allama Iqbal's show in Punjabi. So I belong to the Punjabi background. So he said that, okay, you, since you have a bit of the understanding of this speaking and all that, so you know that some technical aspects as well. So why not to host this show? I said yes, of course. If I'm not going to be an artist, at least I can be an anchor. So then I
Right.
went to the PTV. I hosted a show. I really liked that. Later on, my very close friend Ali Nasir, he was at that time chief operating officer of the Indus Vision TV. You know that it was a very famous TV at that time. Later on, it was closed down. So he used to call me in his program because I have the background of economics. So for the economic analysis or even the youth affairs, because I was also involved in the youth trainings and youth motivation. So
Wow.
I was there in his show for a lot of time. So one day he called me, said that why not you can host a show. They have a kind of a slot that the show was related to the youth affairs. So then
Right.
I said, why not? So I started from the Indus Vision. The show's name was Tonight with Shujaat Mubarik. So we did couple of those shows. It was even we invited quite high profile guests over there in the show, and that was quite amazing. So it was that at that time YouTube was banned in Pakistan. The shows were used to be on board. Online on the Daily Motion. Yet there are a couple of shows there on the Daily Motion. Maybe, but once I relook at those shows, I could find that how non-professional you can say, or how anari I was to handle the things. Obviously, but you know that as we move forward, once we look back, a lot of things happened wrong. That okay, I could have improved those things. But anyway, so that was the time when I started the media, and I started for a couple of months. Then later on, I left for my PhD. Then I came back. Even once I came back, so again I was Ali Nasser was again at the Business Plus. So he called me, and then from the Business Plus again I started my show at Business Plus TV. Then it was a live transmission, so I became a kind of that uh, not expert, but at least I could have been. I could knew that how to run the show. So then at Business Plus, I learned a lot. For 3 years, I was host for the live transmission. Sometime it happened that I was just hosting the show from 9 to 12 for 3 hours, 2 hours. The stock shows, high profile guests, everything. So that was so from the Business Plus. Then I came to another channel that was K21. I used to host show Secret of Success. Then from K21 to the Capital. In fact, at the Capital, I started producing my own content. It's a corporate lounge. So the show, although the show has been, it's on the screen of Capital TV, but this is my own brand and this is my own show. So now I'm moving on another channel. So that exactly the same show would be moving over there. So this is how So this is one side of my journey, and a lot of people, those in my university, even those who are not very much aware of the social media, or those who are not very much linked with me, they don't know even that I'm a TV anchor. So
Wow.
because I'm fully involved as well in the teaching. I'm in the management. So it's really very very interesting. Once I am at the TV show, I'm a TV anchor. Then once I am at the university, obviously I'm a university professor. Whatever the job is with
Many
me,
of your
that's what I'm doing.
students, many of your students must be getting a surprise today because they might don't follow a business TV show. But I'll add on some comments here. There are a few of your friends over here as well. Even they're here for a surprise. We have got with us Malik Umair, and he says, "Doctor साहब, हम तो आपको बड़ा easy ले रहे थे." So he's there, and he says, "Doctor Saab, the great, we were supposed to meet. Didn't know you're coming live on the show."
Yes. In fact, you know that I for your show I planned that I have to be at home, uh, and I would be, that everything I planned well because you told me very, very in advance. But you know that what happened, that things turned in a way that now I am on the way in the car sitting, although I'm very much relaxed. But so I didn't get time. In fact, I just sent that brochure to a couple of my friends, but I perhaps somehow I missed to tell everybody.
No, no issues. They can always watch it on the repeat session. But I'm very glad and so thankful to you that although you're not at home, still you're kind enough to join us. And that's the best part about technology, that we live in a very remote world. That even if we're not at home, we can still get connected. And that's one
Hmm.
side of the bright side of the pandemic as well. That we've explored quite a lot of opportunities. Now, I'd like to come towards the research topic that you chose. You went for
Hmm.
human capital. And
Hmm.
if I talk about Pakistan and all this pandemic situation, and now the rain has struck, there are lots of things that are questionable when it comes to future. Even if I talk about the whole supply chain during the rain or during the pandemic, things got affected. So, under all your experience, how do you look at it, and how would you advise the people, during such situations of pandemic or rain-struck areas? How can they manage their entire supply chain and house management?
Okay, the first thing, that this related to the human capital, what I have studied a little bit of, or what I my understanding is that this is all about the attitude. This is
Right.
all about the way we perceive the things. The first thing, if we perceive the things in the right way, there is no reason that you cannot solve the things. So the
Right.
human capital, if you're talking about this, without with everything, with the skills and with everything, the one thing which is important is your attitude or the behavior, the way you perceive the things. If we
Right.
start perceiving things in the positive way, if we start perceiving things from the point of view that we have to resolve the issues, so obviously there is no reason that we cannot uh, resolve things. Now let's coming toward this rain issues. Believe me that if our even there was a lot of criticism on the government and everywhere, according to my understanding, if even the government and the institutions which were involved, or which were supposed to manage and supposed to manage the city affairs and all that, if those people would be convinced, if those people would have taken the things in the perspective that definitely we have to resolve these issues with whatever the machinery or resources they have, they could have they could have done a lot more than what now we can see on the ground. So this is, in fact, what happens that if we are every time if we are crying about the resources, that we don't have resources, we won't be able to end up doing anything. So my understanding is that if your attitude is that yes, can do, I can do, this is not a kind of a slogan, this is a very practical attitude. So if you are looking at the problem from the perspective that yes, you can resolve it or you have to resolve it, so every action what you will be doing would be bringing you to the closer to the solution of that particular problem.
Like you
So I
mentioned,
would say.
attitude over here. It just linked me to a very funny and very ironic situation of our people and our society. That I totally agree with the fact when you talk about attitude. Attitude defines everything. But sadly, the attitude here in the society of Pakistani people is that usually when we say that if he can do it, I can do it. But sadly, the attitude of Pakistani people is that if he can do it, let him do it. Why should I do it? So that is the problem that we face. But I absolutely agree to the fact that, rather than criticizing and just pointing fingers at people, look at the resources that we have, look at the current situation we have, and be a bit proactive rather than reactive people. What we've seen is everybody knew that this rain was coming. Rather than criticizing or picking it up as a political situation, one could have been prepared. Like many areas, they started digging up some manholes so that the water could drain. So it's very important as the attitude, and be proactive regarding any situations, because everybody knew that this was coming. So rather than pointing fingers now, one could have been better prepared.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. I can quote here the very famous incident or the reaction of the Edison, the person who invented the light bulb. So it's a very famous story that he's in the New York. It was something, I think, 1816 or 1916, and there was one building was on fire, and the people called the home that the your building is homeowner, that your building is on fire. So it was the Edison. So they suddenly, Edison and his wife and his kids, they came downstairs, and once they saw that their 4 or 5 buildings were in fire, and his lab and everything, every asset were burning. And his wife was, they people were looking at the fire because they couldn't do anything. The fire was in so much, that it was a blaze everywhere. So then what happened, that the wife of the Edison, she was looking at the fire and was saying that, oh my God, our everything has burnt, our every resource has burnt. And then, now what was, Edison added something. She said that our every resource has burnt. He said, and our every error and mistake has also burnt in the fire. So this
Wow.
fire has provided us a new, it's a kind of a new chance to again rebuild our buildings, again to rebuild our resources without committing the mistakes which we did in the past. And believe
Beautiful.
me that it happened. You can read the American history, you can read the history. After 6 years, the same building, the same person was having the more buildings, more assets, as compared to the previous, which was set ablaze. So the thing is that this is about the attitude. As I always tell to my friends and my students, that the situation everyone is facing same. Even my today's newspaper column which I wrote, it is about that we all are facing the same situation, but why everyone has a different result? Because situation plus our response is equal to the outcome. So the situation for Eddie's wife and for the Eddie's were the same, but Eddie's response were different. So that was the outcome was different. Maybe our house is on fire, maybe somebody else's house is on fire, but my response can be different. So my outcome would be different. So the situations for every Pakistani, there is rain for everybody. There is rain for everybody. Of course, the situation is same. Now, how do we respond to the rain? It will affect our outcomes. If definitely, as you mentioned, that if we would be proactive, so our outcome would have been a different. For at the country level, I just give you example of Malaysia. They
Yeah.
receive rainfall much more than Pakistan.
Right.
Now, what they do, they store the rainwater, and all of their water supply is running on the same rainwater. So you know that Pakistan could have done the same thing. We could have, if our response would be different. We knew, I knew that at it was 4, 5, 6 months before, National Disaster Management Authority told us, they warned us that the rains would be, there would be the disastrous rains in Karachi especially, and in all over the country. So we have to be very careful. There was a lot of repeated warnings from the various institutions, governmental institutions, but there was nothing, moving on. There was nobody, there was no proactive response. So what happened? That this reactive and subtle response, it led us even to the more miseries. And if we could have done the proactive response, the outcome would have been a different.
Right.
So,
I
yes,
totally agree with the fact that, and I believe that rather what's gone is another lesson for all of the people. And all the systems are involved and are in charge. I think they should take this as a lesson and in future avoid, because as you said, I totally agree to this point of yours that one should be positive and have a very constructive attitude towards everything. Now what has already gone. Rather than criticizing and pointing fingers at each other won't help the cause, but rather than looking at the problem and giving a solution to it and how to implement that solution in a practical way is what matters a lot. But now, sir, I'd like to move on and I'd like to ask you, because since you have a very deep eye on the whole economic situation as well, we've seen many foreign magazines, many foreign people have rated Pakistan as a very potential economy in the future. And although we hear a very different story when it comes to our local people, under your observation, where do you see Pakistan economy going in the next 10 years?
Uh, it's very hard to predict about the next 10 years, but in next couple of years, if the things are, if there is no any drastic change in the resource mix of Pakistan, we are not going anywhere. We'll be just fighting with all of our these problems. For really for the economic development, the fundamental thing which is very very important, that is education. Until unless we do not transform the structure of our education, we do not transform as to how we are imparting the education, as to how we are examining our students, as to how we say that this student is a very intelligent or this is not intelligent student. These all things have to be revamped, including the syllabus which we are teaching to our students. There is a great need of reforms in the education system. So once the education is for all, if in only for the 10 years, if we are providing a quality education, the right education to our masses, definitely after 10 years Pakistan would be something else. There's only one formula for the success. So if it's not happening in the Pakistan, believe me that whatever the industrial growth takes place here, whatever the things which we are doing, it's not going anywhere. It would be a catch 22 situation. Every development, everything would be leading us to again to the back to the square, because education is the most important thing. It forms the behavior of the people, it forms the etiquettes, it forms the cultures, it forms the honesty, it forms everything. So education is the real education, so that's very important. So we have to learn the lesson from every country of the world. I cannot
True.
see any of the country in the world which without education which can develop. Right from the United States till to the China, the you can see, or India even you can see. So none of the country has embarked upon the journey of high economic growth and development without education. So to me, until
It's all
unless we do not have a radical reform in the education, we cannot go anywhere.
it's absolutely interconnected, because once you have educated people around, the awareness factor is there, and then again, when everyone is educated, so naturally, more economic incomes and resources are managed, and then we have merit based people on every position. And the problem that we were discussing about, rather being reactive than being proactive. So once the awareness and education is there, everything falls in place. So here I would like to ask you that as we've seen Harvard and Oxford and all the recent trends of education are more pushed towards skill based education rather than the whole traditional degrees that we are used to seeing for the past many decades. So since you're a professor as well, mashallah, you've got such deep knowledge and eye on all the education sector as well. What advice would you like to give the younger generation, the students, regarding choosing their field and rather and in choosing in their career?
Okay, it's a very good and very pertinent question. You know that the education has two major objectives. Uh, Unfortunately, we consider the education for only one objective, and that objective is to gain the employment. The major objective for us, for all of the developing societies like Pakistan, the only thing for which we gain education is to get the employment, right? But education has another objective which is more important than this objective. That is to make a useful person for the society. So to me, the you know that of obviously our youth should go for the skill enhancement. They have to go for the various skills, the vocational trainings, and all that. But at the same time, they have to know the history of Pakistan. They have to know the real history of Pakistan. They have to know the sociology and what are the various social norms. They have to know the various logics. They have to know the various other things which can make them a very good human being for the society. So obviously, now in especially after the pandemic situation, the 4 year degree programs, maybe it would be becoming very luxurious, and for getting into the job market, 2 years degree, 1 year degree would be sufficient. So and the students have to go toward, maybe they have to go more toward the skills, maybe vocational training skills, maybe toward the entrepreneurship, and the degrees like 4 years BBA programs or BS programs, they would be just becoming super luxurious. But at the same time, we have to teach our kids, maybe at the O level, A level stage, about the real civic sense things which can make them the good citizen for the Pakistan. So obviously, I'm cutting the story short. The things are going to change. The vocational training, entrepreneurship, and out of the box thinkings, these things would be taking place. And the conventional education, maybe it would be, the importance of it would be compromised in the coming days.
Absolutely, I totally agree to it. We've got with us Dr. Sabir Ahmed, who is the HOD of the Media Department at Greenwich University. He says very interesting and informative session. So, sir, I'd like to ask you, what potential do you see in the younger generation, the students there, because you've taught a lot of students. What potential do you see in our students as a whole?
That the youth of Pakistan, no doubt, I am not exaggerating anything. We have a brilliant youth. Our brains, our logical sense, we are brilliant people. But the problem is that we have tracked our abilities, we have tracked our all the strengths, maybe upon the way which is not very productive or which is not very useful. So
Very
the
true.
first thing which the strength of the Pakistani youth is they are very creative. Number one, they are very logical. They can think out of the box. These are the three major strengths. The problem with our youth is that they do not want to come out of the comfort zone. That's the biggest problem. So if you do not want to come out of the comfort zone, obviously these all things would not going to lead you anywhere. You have to
True.
come out of the comfort zone. Now what do I mean by the coming out of the comfort zone? Means, for example, if you're that the trend is that you're doing your degree and you're going into the job market, getting some job, and then okay, fine, 9 to 5 doing job and coming home, and so this is a routine, this is your comfort zone.
Hmm.
If you really want to use your skill, you have to come out of your comfort zone. Maybe you have to start your entrepreneurial venture. You have to do some different things. You have to, that do a lot of other things which would definitely require you to come off out of that 9 to 5 situation. But definitely the result would be much more. So that's, you can see that the youth of the countries like even America, or you can see the China, those who have come out of the box, those who have come out of the comfort zone, they have
Hmm.
really excelled. So the problem of this comfort zone, I just say it, that this what we call it kahili, and बल्कि मुझे मेरे एक टीचर है, I could recall him, that he used to say, काहिली सुस्ती को सुस्ती काहिली सुस्ती को, सुस्ती बेहिसी को, और बेहिसी बेगैरती को जन्म देती है. ठीक है.
क्या
So this
बात.
was, I used to think that what does it mean. Then I
Hmm.
realized that if we are कायल, okay यार छोड़ो, उसको छोड़ दे. जब हम हर चीज में काहली करेंगे, then we'll be becoming सुस्त. जब हम सुस्त करेंगे, so then at the a time a point will come, जब हम बेहिस means that we'll be insensitive. जो भी चीजें हो रही है यार चलो ठीक है, होने दो होने दो होने दो. तो जो शख्स insensitive हो जाता है, eventually they become, that उनके वो कहते हैं कि
मर
जो
जाती.
फिर exactly. So
Totally
that's
agree.
why once we just think that, once we are saying, oh, आप काहिल हो रहे हैं, तो आप ये समझ लें कि this is the journey which is going to end at a very bad thing. ठीक है. तो काहिली जो है ना, if we are getting out this काहिली from our life, So then obviously we are out of the comfort zone, and we'll be heading to toward our destination.
I think there's not a better way, anyone could have put it. It's so beautifully advised and summarized it, sir, that our youth, they have high potentials, but all the energies that they're using is not in the very right directions. And I totally agree to the fact where you said that comfort zone se jo hai bahar nikle, because whenever we talk about greatness, greatness is always achieved when you go out of your way. If you're okay with anything and you can do it easily, then you're not achieving greatness, believe me, because all the success stories around the history books, if you pick any one of it, you'll always see that that person is going out of the way, he's going the extra mile to achieve that greatness. और जब तक आप अपने आप को पुश नहीं करेंगे अपने कंफर्ट जोन से बाहर निकलने के लिए, you will lead a ordinary life and you'll just be an ordinary person. एंड अपनी जो एनर्जीज है उसको टिकटॉक से और मीम से निकाल के जरा प्रोडक्टिव चीजों के ऊपर लेकर आए, सो दैट हम अपनी जो यूथ की एक स्ट्रेंथ है उसको एक प्रोडक्टिव वे में, एफिशिएंट वे में यूटिलाइज कर सकें. सर इंडीड इट वाज सच अ प्लेजर टू हैव यू, और बहुत कुछ आपसे सीखने को मिला, एंड वाज सच एन इंटेलेक्चुअल कॉन्वर्सेशन. आई रियली होप कि हमारे जितने व्यूअर्स हैं उन्होंने भी बहुत सारी चीजें ग्रैब की होंगी. बट बिफोर लीविंग टुवर्ड्स द लाइटर साइड, यू मेंशन्ड that you really had a passion for singing. So I would like to request you to, sing a few lines for us.
Well, in fact, this is the question which you are asking, but my friends which would be watching me, they, I think this is something which is really embarrassing, because I
It's
am
okay.
really a very, very bad singer. It's not, I'm not joking. I'm really a very bad singer. So I used to sing, but you know that this is uh, what to say. Okay, at the end of the show, while leaving, I will sing, so that after that you cannot ask me any question. कि यार इतना बुरा तो नहीं. While leaving the show, I would be singing.
सर आप खुद पॉजिटिविटी की बात करते हैं, और पॉजिटिविटी की बात करते हैं, तो पॉजिटिविटी के अंदर तो देखें ना, वन शुड ऑलवेज लुक एट द ब्राइट साइड एंड ऑलवेज back himself to do
So
wonders.
yeah. That's why I'm promising that in the last minutes of this show, I'll be closing your show with my singing.
All right. So I'd like to ask you then, how was your experience being here at Greenwich Live Sessions?
Sorry.
Your experience of being here on the show, Greenwich Live Sessions.
Oh, it is great indeed. It's like it's a very natural, and I must appreciate you the way you are. Since being an anchor, I can understand that it's not easy to anchor the show, because the anchor is the driver of the show. So I
Right.
really enjoyed to be on your show. It's not any kind of exaggeration. Your the way you moderated the session, this show, it's really amazing. I have already watched a couple of your other shows. It's really amazing, and I could see a great anchor in you. But obviously, you know that with the great anchor, I would not advise you to get the full-time side of the media, as maybe it's also better to have, that divide your time into media and something other, also the both the productive things. But that I also do not advise the people to get exclusively in one profession. You have to have
True.
at least two professions in your life for the diversity. So
Right.
it is indeed a good show, and I like very much to be on your show.
They always say that never keep all your eggs in the same basket. So I'll take that advice as well. And thank you so much, sir, for your time. And now, since we're leaving, so I request you to, just sing a few lines for all the audience.
Okay, so वो कौन सा गाना है? अच्छा चले जी.
जी.
ये पंजाबी गाना है, और दिस अ पंजाबी फोक सॉन्ग. मैं
Yeah.
सिर्फ इसका एक अंतरा पढ़ूंगा तो आपको अंदाजा हो जाएगा.
Sure.
ओ आशिका तू सोना मुखड़ा छुपाण लई, आशिका तू सोना मुखड़ा छुपाण लई, सजना ने बूए अगे चिक ताण लई, चिक ताण लई, ओ चिक ताण लई, सजना ने बूए अगे चिक ताण लई, आशिका तू सोना मुखड़ा लुकाण लई, सजना ने बूए अगे चिक ताण लई.
क्या बात है
अब अगर
सर.
आप
मैं इतना आपके स्टूडेंट्स इतने लकी हैं दैट यू आर सच अ लाइवली पर्सन एंड माशाल्लाह यू नो आपकी क्लास में कोई बोर नहीं हो सकता बिकॉज आपकी सारी जैसे आपने हमारे सेशन में हमने देखा यू गेट सच अ वर्सेटाइल personality mashallah so you're so humble and yet you're so entertaining and intellectual at the same time so you know it was such an honor to have you here today और सर आपने अच्छा गाया आप हम कहीं में कह रहे थे नहीं गा सकते देखिए ये तो एक स्टेट ऑफ हार्ट है इंसान की स्टेट एक फीलिंग है यू नो व्हेन अ पर्सन इज हैप्पी
Yeah.
he can express himself just by singing or dancing so
So
indeed
I am yet learning. I just let me tell you that I am yet learning in the this one thing which I did in the this during pandemic. I called somebody who he's a teacher of the music. He used to come to my home and I used to learn. And again, I'm going to resume my learning, inshallah. And one day, definitely, at least I would be a considerable kind of singer that too won't be embarrassing much. Thank you so
so
much for
thank you so
inviting me
much,
on the show.
thank you sir keep smiling stay safe and keep doing the wonderful work that you've been doing over the years.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. So you heard Dr. Shujaat Mubarik and the wonderful things he had to say. What a wonderful personality. And he's got such deep control over everything that he says. And indeed, you know, all the people who are watching this session today, I think you must have learned quite a lot of things. The best thing, if I just summarize it, the pickup points were always be positive in life, be very constructive when it comes to choosing your career and just get out of your comfort zone if you want to achieve big in life. So that was some beautiful piece of advices by Dr. Shujat Mubarak, and indeed it was a wonderful session. So that was all for today. Inshallah aapse kal mulaqat hogi with another session with another guest. You can always give us your feedback in the comments where you can let us know कि आप फ्यूचर्स में लाइव सेशन में किन गेस्ट को देखना चाहते हैं किन टॉपिक्स पे लाइव सेशंस देखना चाहते हैं. And right here, you can see all the details of Greenwich University. That includes our WhatsApp number, that is 0306 224 8363. Our email address, that is admissions@greenwich.edu.pk. And our website, greenwich.university, where you can apply for the next semester. It is starting from 15th September, the fall semester, and all the programs that Greenwich is offering. That includes BBA, MBA, MPhil, PhD, economics, banking, finance, English literature, linguistics, media that includes animation, graphics, journalism, radio, TV, and Greenwich is also offering B.Ed program for all the teachers out there who want to get into the field, who want to prolong and professionally get into the education side. Visit Greenwich.university and sign up for the B.Ed program at flat 50% discount. Until next time, keep smiling, stay safe, stay positive, not corona positive, but positive in life. Until next time, Pakistan Zindabad.